not the guy to be asking any specific or especially complex tax questions. I keep up on this stuff just so I could do the 15 or 20 tax returns that I do every year for family and friends, and that's about it. And so it's always a good idea to get yourself an advanced tax practitioner. When I had my own practice, there were two people that I would reach out to. They were both senior tax practitioners. They each had their own firm. I'd known them for a long time, and it was a two-way street. I would help them with using software because that's always been what I really enjoy, and they would help me with any specific tax questions. And oftentimes I just send them the client, say, listen, you know what, you handle this. Too much trouble for me. So again, we really want to point out that we are unable to answer any tax questions today. Okay, let's talk about why ProFile. Well, I think this screenshot describes it 100% accurately. You can handle virtually every tax scenario with ProFile. That pretty much says it all, doesn't it? Whether you need T1, you need T2, T3, or Form Expert FX, where you want to be doing T5s or charity returns or anything else, you're covered. ProFile's got you covered, and it's been that way for we can talk in terms of decades now, not years. It's been that way for quite a long time, and there's all kinds of additional reasons that you will want to choose ProFile. And you can see there some bullets: flexible licensing. So if you have more than one computer, you personally, oftentimes people will have a desktop at the office and maybe a laptop that they bring home, and you want to sometimes work on ProFile from your home. Sometimes you're working on ProFile from your office. Well, you could have a flexible licensing enabled such that you could disable the license on one computer and use it on another computer. And again, you can see some of the other bullets there. All modules are included. All you have to do is buy the license that you need. Some people only need T1. Some people need the whole suite of licenses. It's very flexible. It's all up to you to pick and choose what it is you want. Other reasons to use ProFile, those of you that maybe have been on a prior webinar, or maybe you've taken some other ProFile training, you've probably heard that term, MAUI. It refers to multiple application user interface. What it means is it's consistent. So you see here, we've got different modules. We've got the 4 modules, in fact, T1, T2, T3, and FX. And no matter what module you're in, you could be working in a T1 return. And I don't know if you do this, because I did it a lot. We would work on a T1, we'd have a T2 open at the same time. And sometimes we'd have a couple of T1s open because we were working on a coupled return. There's a married couple, there's dependents. And so we might have 2 or 3 T1s open, and then we'd have a T2 open, because we're working in all of them at the same time. And with MAUI, that means that no matter what module you're in, what tax return you've got open, if you know how to use T1 ProFile, then you could use T2, because it works exactly the same way. And as well, no matter what tax year you're in, maybe you've done this as well, where you've done multiple years. The client shows up at your office and says, I haven't filed a tax return for the last 3 years. And you need to do 3 years worth of tax returns. Well, again, you could have that open in ProFile if need be. You could work on multiple years at the same time without any problem at all. There's also a very, very extensive auditor. You can see on the screen, it says 2,800 plus diagnostic checks. So ProFile has a very, very capable auditor, and we're going to talk about the auditor a little bit later, that checks on your work and will highlight any potential errors, even make suggestions about, hey, did you think about this? Or maybe you should do this instead of that. I always called it my second set of eyes whenever I would be working on tax returns. The auditor definitely was something I would use constantly. We already described the various ways in which you can get help, and that's a great feature with ProFile. The help resources are extensive, which we'll talk about it in the next couple of screens. It is customizable, so you can personalize it. We're going to show you different ways in which you can personalize ProFile. You could use online tools. We're going to show you a couple of online options that are available to you. We're going to do a demo of a new feature around 2 p.m. Eastern time, with just a little bit over an hour from now. And just to show you some of the online tools that are available in ProFile. It also works with QuickBooks, more on the T2 side of things. If you've got a client who's on QuickBooks, you could actually send data from QuickBooks into ProFile. And we touched on that a little bit in our T2 webinar coming up in 2 weeks. Let's stick to the T1 module for now. A couple of features that are available in the T1 module. So first of all, yes, you can carry forward files. Of course, you could carry forward last year's files from ProFile, but you could also carry forward files from other software applications. And whether that's TaxBite, for example, or Dr. Tax, or whatever else you may have been using last year, you can take those files and carry them forward. Of course, any scenario, any province. So, not sure if you prepare T1s for, let's say, Quebec taxpayers. Maybe you've got a couple of clients that live in Quebec. ProFile can handle that. You've got the rest of the country is a no-brainer, but it can handle any province and any year going back something like a dozen years. So you can go back 10 years ago and do a tax return for that tax year if you need to. CRA autofill my return, of course, is available inside of ProFile. We're going to show you a demo on how to use autofill my return. Online backup is something we're going to also show you. So if you have any kind of hesitancy about where you're storing your tax files, or at least where you're storing a backup of your tax files, then online backup, I think, will be interesting for you, because there's a way in which you could send your client tax files to Intuit, which they will store on their servers, and you could have an extra backup offline. It's not in your or offsite if you prefer, and in that way, if anything bad happens to your computer, then you don't have to worry about it. You can get the backup from the cloud, and we'll show you a very quick demo of that. And of course, it's been around for decades. And it's proven, it's reliable, and it's guaranteed. So guaranteed? Yep, it's guaranteed. So here's, if you go to ProFile's website, you will see that there is an accuracy guarantee listed there. And it basically says if you make a calculation error, or not you make, if ProFile makes a calculation error into it, will reimburse you for any interest they charge you on a reassessment. So they put their money where their mouth is. What about help? Well, let's walk through some various screens. There's a bunch of ways in which you can get help. There's training videos, there's other webinars, and we're going to talk about a bunch of these things. There's a downloadable user guide over and above the one that we're sharing with you today. There's a community that you can tap into. And there's, of course, the old-fashioned telephone help. There's chat or messaging help. And let's have a look at a few of these right now. So yes, you could telephone ProFile if you would like. You could also use live chat. I actually did that just a couple of weeks ago. I was having a little bit of an issue. So I was in ProFile and I was like, well, why is this not working? I don't know what's going on. It's not working. And you see these little icons on the toolbar. So this is our toolbar, various toolbars that we've got here. But we've got these 3 icons right here Oh, no, sorry. I think we're going to get buzzed in a few minutes. Oh, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I live in a condo. I'm obviously working from home today. And every once in a while, they test the fire alarms. And I heard something buzzing, and I thought, oh, no, don't tell me they're gonna start. And it's pretty loud, but no, never mind. It's something else. So good, not a problem. What were we talking about? We were talking about these icons right over here. So there's three icons that I just wanted to very quickly point out. We talked about online tools. So you see there's a cloud icon right over here. So this icon is for you to log into ProFile. Okay, so if you click that icon, you could log into ProFile, and there we go. See, now it's asking us to sign in. And that's how you could enable some of these online tools. And it's going to take a minute or two for this window to load. I foolishly logged out when I was talking to you, but nonetheless, I won't bother logging in just now. You can see that there's a sign in button that I would just click. So if you already have an Intuit account, all you have to do is sign in, and then you could start using some online tools. So that's the first thing I wanted to point out. And then we're going to show you what you could do once you've logged in. Let me just close that window. There's a notification icon. So if there's anything new, anything important that ProFile thinks you need to know, you will see that this icon gets lit up, and you will get notified right from within ProFile about any thing that's really important that you need to know about. And then this last icon here is the messaging icon. So if I click that, I could actually start a messaging, a conversation with a tech support representative. So notice that a website is opened up. And if I go right down here, it says start a live chat session. So you could actually be working in ProFile and doing something, and you could enable a chat session, and right from within ProFile, you could then start asking your question, and they could monitor what's going on, and they'll solve your problem for you. Invariably, that's what's going to happen. They're going to solve your problem for you. You can just stay right at your computer and continue working, or just chat away and get that issue resolved right from within ProFile. So that's what these three icons are for. And let's go back to our presentation. And so that's what the live chat is for. I just showed you how you could use it. Of course, there's in-product help. So you could actually just go to the help menu. You could click on ProFile help, and you would see various topics and issues that you could query, and you could search based on any topic that you choose and get help right from inside the product. There's also all kinds of online resources, including, of course, Intuit's own website. So notice if I go back to the help menu here, there's a user guide. I don't want to forget the user guide. There is an extensive user guide. It's got to be 200 pages, 250 pages at least, that you could access just by clicking user guide here. You could also go to support and then go to technical support, and that'll also launch a website. And you can see all kinds of additional support resources here, okay? Including, we're going to show you a screen on this, but what the heck, we're here now. Video, my favorite. Personally, my favorite help resources were the videos. I really liked using the videos. They're extensive. They're to the point. They're not 2-hour videos. Some of these are only 5-10 minutes. And if you need to know something about ProFile, you want to know how to set it up, how to use ProFile on a network, or things of that nature. There's video, guided videos that will show you step by step how to do that. And so don't forget the videos. The videos are fantastic. And so there's all kinds of help resources, as you can see, right from, obviously, that help menu, okay? But that's not all. If you go to training, you'll also see that there are guided tutorials that you could click on. I'm pointing to them all right now. So you could, let's say you hired a new team member, somebody's coming into your practice and they're going to start working on T1s, and they're not really all that familiar with ProFile. You could just tell them, okay, go to training and click on 2023 T1 TP1, and it's going to be a guided tutorial that was going to instruct them on how to use that module in that tax year. And then, of course, there's also another menu here, other training option. Once again, it's going to open up a website. And there's the user guide that we were talking about. And there's the videos as well, okay? And so there's another way in which you can get help. So there's all kinds of help available to you from inside ProFile. Just click on the menus. But remember, the important thing is don't just go to the help menu, although there's tons of stuff there. You could also go, as we just saw, to the training menu, and you could even go to the online menu. And what's cool here, there's a bunch of cool stuff here, but in terms of information, if you go to the online menu and you click on update information, you'll see it says what's new. So if we click on what's new, we're going to see there was actually an update. I think it was just released today or yesterday. And here's the latest version of ProFile. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. And here's everything that's new with that latest version of ProFile. Okay, so again, just want to very quickly point out that you can get help, of course, in the help menu, but also the training menu and the online menu, which a lot of these will lead to an online resource like Intuit's website. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. And the online community is also something that you could tap into if you want to. Maybe you feel like answering a few questions. You've got a bit of downtime. You've been doing tax work for a long time. You've been using ProFile for a few years, and you want to help some other people out. You could actually join the Intuit Canada ProFile tax community and answer questions. You could ask questions, of course, or you could view topics that have been discussed. Okay, and again, you can see all you have to do is click help, support, technical support, and that'll bring you to the Intuit tax community. And then last but not least, as we've already described, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit, jumping ahead of the slides. We have these how-to videos that will walk you through various features in ProFile, how to enable some of these settings, how to do things depending on what it is you need to do. Please make a point of checking out those videos. Okay, let's talk about some key settings. So again, depending, some of you, maybe you've been longtime ProFile users, you know all this stuff already, and that's great. Thank you for being here. Some of you maybe are brand new to ProFile, and you're not sure where to go. What do we do? How do we get started with this? And so there are some key settings that we're going to suggest you enable in ProFile just to make things more efficient for you. And then over and above that, there are some additional settings that you might want to enable or turn on or tweak. But there are some that are almost, I'm going to use the word mandatory, even though it's not really mandatory, but it's just to be efficient. So here's a few of them. E-file options. Well, that's kind of mandatory, isn't it? I mean, if you want to e-file someone's tax return, then you have to go in and enable and set up the e-file options. So what you could do is, let's go back to ProFile here. So we just have to go to e-file, go right down to the bottom of this little window and select options. And then what we do from there is we could just click on T1 And then you're going to see there's going to be a little T1, TP1 wizard button that gets lit up. I'll click that. And now it's just a matter of cycling through the screen. So I'll click next. You're going to be asked for your online number and your password. Don't forget that we're at that time where we need to renew. If you've already got an e-file number and e-file password from last year, I think it's just about now that we have to update or renew that license with CRA. And so this is where you tell ProFile what your CRA credentials are. Okay, and then you just keep clicking next. Maybe you do Quebec returns, so you would put in your Revenue Quebec credentials in this window, and then click finish, and there you go. You've established your T1 e-file options. Okay. You also should indicate in ProFile your preparer settings. So let's show you very quickly how that works. We'll go to the options menu. We're going to come back to this menu quite a few times today. So we click on options, then we click on environment. And what we've got is different tabs here. Notice that there are all these tabs. So these are all the settings that you could enable or tweak in ProFile. But there's one tab in particular we want to talk about. It's called the Preparer tab. So let's click in there. And this is where you would put in your credentials, your name, your firm's name, your address, phone number, and all that stuff. And then right down at the bottom here, I'm highlighting it, your rep ID information or your business number or your group ID that CRA gave you. You're considered a representative. You're representing your client perhaps with CRA, and you've got an ID that CRA gave you, and you would put that in here. Okay, so all of this is done at the preparer level or on the preparer tab of the environment options window. So it's a great idea to go in there and put in those credentials. And then while you're at it, let's look at another setting that is pretty important, the file settings. In other words, where are your files saved? Where does ProFile put your files? And this is where the file settings comes into play, because you could tell ProFile where you want those files to sit. So notice this is a tab that's called File. And what we're seeing here is each T1 module. So notice we've got 2023, 22, 21, and so on and so forth. And each module, T1 gets, or each file for each T1 module is in a different folder. So we've got a folder that essentially takes our user ID, goes to our documents folder. ProFile creates another subfolder called My ProFile Data, and then it'll create a subfolder to that for each tax year, 2023 T1, 2022 T1, and so on and so forth. So this is done by default. ProFile will create these categories, these repertoires, whatever you want to call them, these folders, and that is done automatically. Right now, if for one reason or another you don't want ProFile to store those files there, you want ProFile, maybe you have a network, maybe you've got 4 or 5 or even 2 tax preparers in your office, and you share a folder amongst your team, and all the tax files are to go to one designated folder. Well, this is where you would change those destinations, and you would make sure that everybody's tax file goes to the same folder. Okay. The other thing you want to do is notice there's a checkbox right in the far right-hand column, and it says lock. Notice that I've got that checkbox ticked. So I've clicked and checked the lock checkbox. What does that do? It locks the location. When we used to do live training, it invariably happened that someone would come during the break and say, I don't know what ProFile did, but it lost all my tax files. Or sometimes they would say, ProFile deleted all my tax file. Why? Because what happens is if you're working on a tax return, so I'm in this tax return here, and if I click File, Save, automatically ProFile is going to save it in that My Profile data, as you can see right there, 2023 T1. Okay, that's where ProFile is going to save it. And if I click File Open for that particular tax year, ProFile is going to go in that designated folder. Now, if I did not click that lock checkbox, and I decide that I'm going to save this file in a different location. So I could do something like this, File Save As, okay? And I'm going to say, I don't want to save it in my 2023 T1. I'm going to save it somewhere else. I'm going to save it in a different folder. I'm going to stick it on my desktop, okay? And sometimes I actually used to do that when I would do some what if scenarios for a client. I would create a temporary file, save it on my desktop, click save, and now I had a file on my desktop, okay? Now what happens is if I did not have, let's go back to that window we were just talking about. If I did not click that lock checkbox, the next day I come in and I say, oh, I want to work on some tax files, and I go File, Open. Where do you think ProFile is going to go look for the file if the checkbox isn't checked? Where was the last place I saved my file? On the desktop. So now ProFile is going to go and search on the desktop for the next file to open. And then I'm going to go, what happened to all my files? They're all gone. ProFile destroyed them. No, they're still there. It's just looking in a different location. So save yourself that grief. Lock it down. All right. So go through all of the modules. So notice there's a whole slew of modules. Lock them down. Okay. And then you're going to be consistent in where ProFile saves your files and where ProFile looks for a file to open. So those settings are the key settings you will definitely want to enable. About some additional settings. Let's talk very quickly about a few other settings. So what are you going to give the client? Different offices do different things. Some people still print all of their tax files and give the client a copy of the T1 and all the schedules, all the whole T1 jacket, the whole thing. Others will say, no, I just print the T1 summary, maybe a few schedules, and that's it. Others will say, forget printing. I'm not going to print anything. Everything's PDF. I want to just give them a PDF. Whatever it is, it's up to you, not a problem. But it's a great idea to tell ProFile that's what you want to do, okay? So there is a form selection setting that you could go into. So once again, we're working consistently from the options menu, okay? And we go to form selection, and then from here, we could tell ProFile. Now, a few things to point out. Notice that it's module year specific. So now we're working on 2023 T1. We're getting ready for 2023 season. So I'm telling ProFile, okay, for 2023 and for T1 e-file. All right, and so make sure you select the right job. We're saying T1 e-file. Here's what I want to give to the client. Notice we've got 3 columns. The filing copy, meaning our own internal copy, the client copy, what we're giving to the client, and then a CRA copy, all right? And so we could do, for example, we'd say, well, first of all, I'm not going to print anything for the office. I don't want filing cabinets full of T1 returns. So I'm disabling the file column. And I'm just going to say, for the client, I want to give them this. And then I could click in here and I could either check or uncheck. Notice that when it's black, it means it's been checked. And when it's When it's faded, it means that it's not selected. And so you could go in here and you could tell Profile, by default, these are the forms they're getting. And some people might say, they're only getting a summary and they're going to get a couple of schedules. That's it. That's what they're getting. And scroll all the way to the bottom because there's a whole pile of these things, okay? And you could decide what it is you want to give your client, including, look down here, the letters, okay? So you've got these letters that Profile will also prepare. And you want to give the client a copy of their letter that says, dear client, we've prepared your tax return. You have a refund of $28, blah, 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 blah. Then you could tell Profile, yes, please also provide a letter to the client, okay? And including engagement letters, for example. There's all kinds of stuff down here at the bottom. And by the way, just a quick tip, you could select one of these, okay? So I could click and hold, and I could then drag it up or drag it down. Notice how I'm dragging that form up or down. Say, okay, print this one first, all right? So this is going to take maybe 10, 15 minutes to set up. But then from there on in, whenever you have to prepare a T1 return, it's going to, again, it's going to be consistent. Every client is going to get whatever form you've selected that your clients will get. And it's not going to print nil forms. I mean, if they haven't used, there's no T2125, they're not self-employed, but you've enabled the T2125. Well, Profile's not going to print a zero T2125 just because you selected it. If it applies, it will print it or PDF it. And talking about PDFs, you could also tell Profile how to handle PDFs. So you could tell Profile where to save the PDFs, how to name the PDF, whether to enable a password for the PDF. So how do we do all that? Once again, go back to the options menu and select environment once again. And then you'll see there's a PDF tab. And here you could tell Profile, your T1s, how do you want Profile to name them? Maybe first name, last name, and tax year, something like that. Okay, so you could select what you want the names to be, how you want that PDF file to be named. You could also select down here where to save the PDFs. Do you want it saved with a tax file or in a completely different folder where all your PDFs start to go? And you can also, at the very bottom of the screen, you could see that you could enable PDF security. So you could tell Profile, set a password to all these PDFs that maybe uses the client name and their social insurance number. So anybody who wants to view that PDF will have to indicate that password. Okay, so you can control how Profile handles PDFs. All right, and I think this might be the last setting that we'll talk about for now. We introduced it very quickly. Yes, you could back up these tax files to the cloud. It's a free service, you don't have to pay for it. And if you want to make sure you don't lose any client files, then you could enable backup to the cloud. So how does that work? Let's just very quickly show you. Again, if we go to the options environment window, then we'll just scroll to the right. There's these arrows right over here at the far right hand side of this little window, and you see there's one that's called backup to cloud. So we'll open up that particular tab, and then we'll say enable backup to the cloud for this computer. We could also say automatically whenever I save a tax file. So I'm working on a T1. As soon as I click File, Save, Profile will also send a copy to the cloud as a backup. Okay, so your files still sit wherever you want them to sit on your computer, but a backup is now going to go to the cloud, and you can then rest assured that if anything bad happens to your computer, at least your backups are safe. Okay, so that's how you could use backup to the cloud. And where are these files? How do I find them? How do I see them? Well, if you click on the Go To menu, you'll see it says Hub, select Hub, and you're going to see your tax files. There we go. Windows is going to open in a second. And there's a whole bunch of tax files that I've got here. These are all fictitious tax files. And notice that some of them, it says they were backed up. Notice the little cloud icon with the little check mark next to them. And I know that these backups are sitting in the cloud, okay? And again, it's just kind of a belt and suspenders security thing where I have my own backup maybe, but hey, this is a no-brainer. It doesn't cost me anything. It doesn't take time. ProFile will automatically back up my files for me. Okay, let's talk about how ProFile works. So this is more for the very new users. So if you are an experienced user, please bear with me as we walk through the next few screens. We're going to show some people who are brand new how to use ProFile and a few key things to know. So how do you get started? Once you've enabled all the settings we talked about. Well, if you're going to be working on a T1, you're either going to generally be creating a new T1 or you're going to carry forward a T1. Okay, so if we go back to ProFile, you could use the icons on the toolbar, or if you prefer working from the menus, you could just select File, for example, and there's New, and I could say I want to create a new 2022, a new 2023, not live yet, of course, but it will be the next couple of months, or a new 2021 or whatever year it is. Or maybe you want to carry forward a file from a prior year, and then you can just select carry forward from here, okay? And then once that opens, then you're going to be working with forms and schedules. There is no entry on the T1 jacket itself. So here we have the T1 jacket, and we just go to it. Notice we have these tabs up here. And so there are 3 tabs that generally get loaded automatically. The info tab, where you would put in all your client information. And then there's a T1 jacket itself. And then there's a T4 tab as well. And so we generally do not indicate any information or enter any information on the T1 jacket itself. Okay, we don't touch essentially the T1 jacket at all. Okay, so where do we put our information? Well, the info tab is where we put in things like social insurance numbers, client names, client addresses, and things of that nature. So let's pretend we're putting in a social insurance number for 5. I've got a list of fake social insurance numbers. I'm just reading one off. I don't know why, but for some reason I hate when I get a little warning from ProFile saying your social insurance number isn't valid. So there you go. I put in a fake social insurance number. I'll put in a name. And that's essentially what we do. We just fill out the info page. Okay, I'll stop there. We're going to come back to that a little bit later. And then anything else I want to put in, I will put it on one of the schedules. All right, so the T4, for example, there's a T4 tab. So I put the information in the T4 window, and then it will flow from there onto the T1 jacket. Okay, so that's how we essentially work in ProFile. We generally do not touch the T1 jacket. We enter everything on a form or a schedule, and our goal is to get rid of any yellow fields. So those yellow fields that we're seeing, let's go back to the info page. All of these yellow fields means there's something wrong. There's missing information or incorrect information. So if I change the social insurance number with a different digit, notice even though I filled out that line, it's still highlighted in yellow. And if I hover my mouse over it, I get the little message saying the social insurance number isn't right. So I just change the social insurance number, the yellow disappears. So as soon as I start populating these yellow fields, they will then turn to white if the information is correct. Okay, so we want to get rid of all the yellow stuff. Yellow stuff generally means there's a problem. Okay, and we'll talk about the auditors in a second. So if you are therefore entering information, and we said you don't put the information in the jacket, you have to go to the form, you have to go to the schedule. How do we find these forms and schedules? Well, there's something called the Form Explorer. And those of you that have been using ProFile for a long time will know that the F4 key is the hotkey to open up the Form Explorer. So let's go back here and let's just say we want to fill out a medical expenses claim. All right. So we want to open up that form where we put in our medical expenses. So we call up the Form Explorer, hit the F4 key on your keyboard. There's the Form Explorer. Okay. And now I could just type in what it is I want to find. So I'll just type in MED for med, and then ProFile will point me to the, hang on a sec, let's click all over here. Oh, something not working. Let me just try that again. There we go. There we go. So make sure, notice that we've got these little folders here. If you're not on the all folder, meaning anything I type in here, look in all the folders. If you're on tax credits or deductions and you type in something, you might not find it because it's not in that folder. So I always make sure I'm at the all folder. Then I type in MED. There's my medical. I can double click it now, open it up, and I can start putting in my medical expenses. So that's essentially what we do. Fill out that page, hit F4 again. Let's pretend we've got them T5. So I just type in T5. That opens up. I fill in my T5 information, and then I've got some RSPs. So let's type in RSP. That opens up, and I put in my RSP information, and I'm doing that on various forms and schedules. And notice how now I've got all these tabs on top of my T1, and I could just click on any of these tabs to go back and forth in the various areas of that particular T1 return. Okay. All right, let's go back to our presentation and a couple of other things to point out with Form Explorer. So for example, if you want to put in tuition, so you could type in tuition, okay, and something curious is going to happen. You don't get a hit. I typed in tuition, ProFile is looking like it can't find it. If I scroll up and down this window, it doesn't seem to come up, okay? Because what I'm searching for is the name of the form. Well, notice it's very small, but it says form right over here. So I'm searching by form name. Now, if you're a new user and you don't know what the form names are, some of them are easy. Donation, DON, medical, MED, T5, T4, T3, that's easy. But then you get to the more arcane stuff like tuition. Well, the form name isn't tuition. The form name is T2202. So you have to type in T2202 to find that form. Now, what if you don't know that and you're trying to find that form? Well, you could search in other ways. There's 4 icons here on the right-hand side of the screen. One of them says list, which is pretty much the same as what we just done. You're going to search by form. Detail is the one we were on, and you're still searching by form or form name. However, you could go to keyword search. All right, so if you do a keyword search and now type in tuition, now you're getting it. Okay, so if you're not finding what you need, switch to keyword search. Okay, and that way you could search by, as the name denotes, by keyword. Or if you're so inclined, I wouldn't do it, but maybe some of you have got a lot of these tax lines memorized, you could actually search by line number. I barely remember my own name. I'm not going to remember all the line numbers on a T1, but there they are. You could search by line number if you want. Okay, so that's how you could work with the Form Explorer. And you'll see that if you're a brand new user, after a while, F4 key becomes your favorite key. It probably, if there's any key that's going to get worn out on your keyboard, it's going to be the F4 key, because you're going to be hitting that F4 key a heck of a lot during tax season. Another little tip for you. One of the things that I really like doing in ProFile, especially if I ever change computers, if I'm working with someone else, I always enable what's called the quick start window. Okay, the quick start window is, I'll show you. I go to the help menu, and then I go and find quick start. So quick start shows me the last tax files I've been working on. Okay, so if I want to see what I've been working on, there are the last however many tax files I was working on. I could also very quickly jump to some resources, as you can see, ProFile help, tutorials and what have you, all kinds of information right there. I have access to other product information or some other programs that are made available by Intuit. And then I could also very quickly create a new 2023 or open a recent or carry forward a T1 file, all from the quick start window. And I could also switch tabs and essentially switch modules. Okay. Now, if you want this quick start window to open up, oops, there it is. If you want this quick start window to open up as soon as you launch ProFile, which is what I like, then make sure you check the box right down at the bottom here. It says show quick start when you start ProFile. And this window will open up. And again, just a way to become a little bit more efficient. Okay. All right, let's go back to our presentation. And another little tip for you, if there's a form you're using, we now know that every time you open up a schedule or a form, ProFile creates a tab at the top of your T1, okay? You could drag some of these tabs onto the toolbar. So there's an area of the toolbar where you could quickly jump to a particular form or schedule, okay? So it's the Forms toolbar. And so, for example, I often would refer for my clients that kept coming back year after year, there's a 5-year summary that I could view. And it's, as the name implies, it's going to show me the last 5 years. So if this client has been with me for quite a few years, even 2 or 3, I could view the 5-year summary form and I could see, okay, how does this year compare to the last 4 years? And it might highlight, oops, how come they had investment income every year in the last 4 years? They don't have any this year. And so you might find certain errors maybe when you consult that 5-year summary. Now, how do I find the 5-year? Well, again, you have to use Form Explorer. So click F4 or press F4, type in 5-year, okay? And again, make sure you're on the detail and not the line number. And so let's try that again. Put it in 5-year, okay? And there's my 5-year tax summary, and I'll open it up. And of course, this is a brand new return, so there's not going to be any information, but there's the 5 years. Now, the tab is there now. The tab is on the top of my T1. Now what I could do is right over here is my Forms toolbar. Okay, notice I've already got some forms up here. I've got the T4, I've got the T5. So I could just take that 5-year, click and hold, and I could just bring it over here and plop it on my Forms toolbar. And now whenever I want to view the 5-year summary, I just have to click it here. I don't have to open up the Form Explorer and type in the name. So anything that I use a lot, I could pop it in here on the Forms toolbar, okay? Okay, let's talk about the auditor. As you work through your tax returns, you're going to see, we already saw what those yellow fields represent. So here, for example, we're typing in some T4 information, we're putting information off the T4, and the T4 for this particular client shows that CPP deductions were $35.99, and the profile says, hang on a sec, that's not right. Profile will check what the T4 should read for CPP, and it's suggesting that actually it should be $34.99. Why don't you go have another look and make sure you didn't mistype that? And if it indeed is $35.99, then we've got to go with a T4 size. But notice that the auditor even works in the background looking at any errors on tax forms like a T4, for example. So that's called the passive auditor, okay? That is the yellow stuff that we've already seen. So if I go back to the info page here, all those yellow fields, we didn't do anything to enable that. That just pops up by itself. And the profile automatically colors a field yellow if there's a problem with it. So that's a passive auditor. It just does that in the background. There's also an active auditor, okay? And the active auditor is actually something that I call up. So what happens with the active auditor is I can press the F9 key on my keyboard and the bottom part of my screen opens up, okay? And now I could, let me just make this a bit higher so you can see. So here's the active auditor. These are all the audit messages, and there's a whole slew of them. Incomplete, taxpayer name and address and all that stuff. So this is the active auditor telling me that there's stuff missing. Okay, so I could click on any of these. So let's just click on any one, and Profile is going to jump to that area and it's going to circle it, as you can see right here. And now Profile is telling me, okay, there's a province here. There's a problem here. So as soon as I type in the province, that field is going to go white. So the auditor is happy now, and I could go to the next audit message. And notice there's all these tabs, and all of these tabs refer to a certain part of the tax return. So there's warnings, there's notices, there's e-file issues, and all various other warnings. Summary is the sum total of all the other tabs, okay? And that's how the auditor works. The auditor is something, the active auditor is something I call up, okay? So I ask for the active auditor to display. The passive auditor, it'll come up all by itself, okay? Whoops, I just launched something there that I didn't want to launch. Okay, so that's how the auditor works. And you could either click on the little icon over here, this is the little spyglass icon, to open up the auditor, or if you press F9, that will also open up the auditor, okay? And a couple of other quick things that might be surprising for you. Font colors are actually a thing in Profile. Believe it or not, the color of the font is important. So let me show you what I mean. I'm going to shut this tax return down. I'm going to say, no, we don't want to save that. And I'm going to carry forward a tax return. All right, so let's just click File, carry forward, and we're going to carry forward from a 20. Okay, let's do this one. We're going to carry forward this one. Let me just use one that's not a spousal. So Lee Francis here. We're going to carry forward a 2021 or 2022 T1 into the 2023 module. I know that's not ready, but just all I want to show you is the font colors. Notice the font colors here. They're purple, okay? Notice, though, that some other fonts are blue. So here, Resident is blue. If we go to the T1 jacket, you're going to see a bunch of blue font. Let me just get down here. So there you go. This is all blue font, okay? And anywhere that I happen to click in. So here it says, as a Canadian citizen, do you authorize CRA to give your names to Election Canada? If I click yes, notice how that font is black. The X is black. What does that all mean? Generally speaking, when you see purple font, it's carried forward. It's information that came forward from a prior year. That's what the purple font represents. Anything that is blue, like on the T1 jacket, means that this information came from somewhere else. So notice here, this 15,000, let's just see, where is that? What is that coming from? Anyway, it's coming from somewhere. Okay, so here it is. All right, so you could actually right-click in that field, and it'll show you where it originally came from, okay? So in this case, it comes from the form called Other Credits. So if you fill out a T4, for example, let me just put in a number here, all right? And then I'll go to the T1, and we'll just go up to the income part, and there's my, whoops, there's my T1 that I put in there's my T1 jacket, the employment income part on the T1 jacket. Where did that come from? Right click, and you can see it came from a T4. Okay, so that's what the blue font means. The blue font means that it came from somewhere else. And you could jump to it by right clicking or even double clicking in that field, and it's going to jump back to the T4. And there's also something called overrides. Remember, blue font means that it came from somewhere else, but I could override that value. So I could type in here a different number. Let me try that again. I double clicked instead of just clicking once, and that's why I jumped to another area. So I'm just going to put in a different number, and notice what happens. The font is now red, and all the experienced profile users will know red font means overrides. I overrode a calculated field, okay? And notice there's a little diamond as well, okay, to say, hey, this is a manually entered amount. And so what happens is the auditor will even show me any overrides. I could go to the auditor, and there's an override tab, and I could see all the overrides. And then if I want to cancel the override, all I have to do is I could right click in there, but again, the hotkey F2, cancel override. Okay, so hit the F2 key if you want to cancel any red font. Okay, so what about preparing a T1? So what do we need? Well, we'll need things like a questionnaire. We might want to send an engagement letter. And next week in our second webinar, we'll show you how you could create an engagement letter from inside ProFile. You will want your client to sign an authorization, give you authorization to go to CRA's website so you can represent that client. And then you'll want whatever forms and slips required. So very quickly, let's show you how you do some of this. So there is a page or a form called Authorize a Representative. You know what the good news is, at least for me, those of us that have been using ProFile or have been doing tax work for a long time. I don't know about you, I still call it a T1013. CRA doesn't call it a T1013, at least I don't see anywhere on their forms where it says T1013 anymore. But here's the good news. If I click F4 or press F4 to open up Form Explorer and type in T1013, it still works. Even though the form name isn't even T1013. The form name is actually Authorized Rep. So there it is. There's my Authorize a Representative page. You could use the old school T1013 description, and the Form Explorer will still find it. So you will want your client to sign this, right? So you can submit it to CRA. However, I think there's another slide here that says, please visit CRA's website if you haven't recently. CRA over the last year or two have been making all kinds of changes to the authorized representative criteria. It used to be just get the client to sign that authorize a rep, submit it to CRA. You could submit it from inside ProFile, right? Just go to the e-file menu and say e-file authorize a representative, and you send it off to CRA. Done. Now it's not as easy as that anymore. And those of you that have been doing tax work for a while know probably better than I do how it's changed. So if you're a bit new to this, please visit CRA's website to get the full disclosure on how this works now. There has to be, the client actually has to authorize you as well, or confirm your request, okay? But once you are authorized, then you can go to CRA's website and you could view, for example, their prior year tax notice of assessment. You could view the current year T4s and whatever else is available, T4As, or any other, whatever other slips that they might have. You could view all of that information directly on CRA's website. So that's why it's a really great idea, of course, to get authorized. And we're going to talk about something else a little later. And then after that, well, we've already been doing that a little bit. So now that we've been authorized, we can now get all the slips we need on CRA's website. And again, as we already showed you, we start filling in the information. There's a T4, then remember F4, call up the next form or schedule you need, T5, put in the information, and so on and so forth, as we've already mentioned. So essentially what we're doing is we're filling out forms, right? Using Form Explorer to find that form, and then putting in the information. So let's pretend there was some interest income. So we're going to fill in $2,000 of interest income here, okay? And that's going to be known now that that's going to go to the T1. It should be here, and there it is right there, okay? That's all there is to it. Now, what happens if, let's do that T4, that error on a T4. Let's go back to the T4, 89.9 was T4 income. Let's pretend the T4 shows $3,000 of CPP, $1,000 of EI, and I don't know, let's put in $20,000 of tax. So right off the bat, CPP still stays yellow. I hover my mouse there and it says, hey, that's completely wrong. They did not deduct the right amount of CPP. Maybe you want to check, did you write the wrong amount? Recheck again. And we're like, no, that's what the T4 reads. So they only took $3,000 of CPP off this poor employee. So what we want to do is we want to tell the auditor that, yes, we know that theoretically that's the wrong number, but that's what the number is on the T4. So we have to stay with it. So this is where review marks come into play. Okay, you could use review marks to tell tell ProFile that yes, this is the correct number for the T4. So I could use one of two review marks here. There's two check marks. There's sign-offs. There's the preparer sign-off, and there's the partner, or they're called the partner sign-off. So I could click on that, and I could come in here, and I could say, yes, I know that's theoretically that's the wrong number, but I'm signing off on it. So I could sign off on any line on the T1 return, okay? And I actually would use this to double check. Before I finalize the return, I wanted to make sure that I indeed inputted the right numbers. So I would use the sign-offs to indicate that, yes, those are the proper numbers, okay? So you could use sign-off. Notice there's other, if you're working with an employee, you've got some people working for you, and you're reviewing their work, you can also use other review marks, like a question mark, and say, you're questioning something. How come these fields are 0? How come this one says 3,000? Or you could use X to say, I know this is wrong. Please check again. Okay, so that's how you could use review marks in a T1. And the active auditor, we've already spoken about. And remember, you can press the F9 key to open it up, Control F9 to close it. Unfortunately, on my computer, I'm using Control F9 to launch another app. That's why you may have noticed that an app opened up when I was trying to close the auditor. So watch what hotkeys you use on your other applications you might have. It might conflict with ProFile. And you could personalize the auditor. So once again, there's a setting you could customize. So if we go back to Options, Environment, and go to the Audit tab, there's all these settings for the active auditor that you could say, show me this, don't show me that. Prevent filing if any of these audit type messages show up. So you can actually tell ProFile, do not allow me to e-file this if there's these types of messages. Okay, so you could personalize yourself the auditor. And you're now ready to send this off. You're now ready to print it or PDF it. And it's up to you to decide what it is you're doing. So if I go File.
Sorry, Michael.
Yep.
It's Duncan here to interrupt you as usual.
Yes, yes, I was waiting for you.
I just want to point out a lot of people that practice with the question mark.
Yep.
And the X's. They end up saying, okay, now how do I get rid of them? And like they don't know how to get rid of the X, so every time they try and enter on a line, it puts an X.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
yeah.
Like, see, the cursor's an X, so they go, okay, well, I don't want more X's, so how do I get rid of them, right?
Yeah.
So it was just maybe you could show that, like how to
well, the way I do it is, as I'm showing, is I just click in the X and I get rid of it.
Yeah, you see, you put an X there.
I put an X there.
No,
I see what you mean, because there was a question mark. I bet you've got a tip. I don't even, I brain fade, or I just don't remember now. Maybe you've got a hot tip for us, Duncan. I know it.
Yeah, so maybe on the slip 2, you want to enter in something on line 14, box 14. Go to there now.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's what you've done now, right? You got rid of the X. That's what I wanted to show.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. All right. I thought you had maybe a tip on we can get rid of them all at the same time or something.
No, I've trained a lot with people in class.
Okay.
And this is the first question I get after I show this.
Okay. Yes. Okay.
Now I can't get rid of the X's.
I see what you mean. Okay. Yes. Thank you for that. No, that's good, because yes, you're right. If I select, yes, definitely. I definitely need to point this out. So if I've selected a review mark and I start clicking in here, and now I want to continue working, and wherever I click, I'm now going to be putting an X. So what we have to do, as Duncan was leading me to suggest, we have to click back in the review mark to disable it. Say, okay, I don't want to use the review marks anymore. Okay, so I can click in there, and now I could continue working again. Okay, so if you don't want to keep typing in X's or check marks, turn off the review mark by going back up to this little toolbar and click inside of it. If you want to get rid of the X's, okay, so there's X's here and I want to get rid of them, I could just click again and I could get rid of that X. All right, so that's how you could work with those review marks. Okay, thank you for that, Duncan.
Yeah, that's perfect, Michael, because that was the other one that comes up. They go, well, now I've got an X mark on the line and I can't file the return.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a bit quick in explaining that, but thank you for detailing that, and look forward to more of your comments. So that's the fun. Actually, Duncan and I and Mario, and if there's a few of us, we've been doing this for a few years now. And that's what I love about these webinars is the insight that the team brings. I mean, like I said, Duncan and Mario and and everybody else who's on this working in the back, they're the real experts. They know how ProFile works way better than I do. So thanks, guys. Okay, let's move on. Let's very quickly talk about autofill. I know we're going to have a guest speaker in about 5 minutes. I just want to get through this particular topic. Autofill my return. Why bother filling in all those T4s and T5s and all that when you can get CRA to populate it for you. That's what autofill is for, okay? And so if you are working on a client file and you've got, I don't, whether it's 25 tax returns or 2,500 tax returns that you do every year, why not use auto-populate the tax fields? So what happens is ProFile is going to log into CRA's website. It's going to find all that T4, T5. Here's all the stuff. Look, T3, T4, T4A, all of the various slips and schedules and RSP and all this, capital losses, all kinds of stuff. Education, tuition credits, the whole shebang. ProFile will populate that information from CRA's website if you use autofill my return. And if you're in Quebec, I don't do Quebec tax. I haven't done it in 20 years. But it can also go to Revenue Quebec's website and autofill that as well. So essentially all you need is, again, you need your client to represent you. You want to make sure that you are indeed authorized to use autofill. And so essentially you have those represented client credentials. And let's just quickly walk you through the screens. So you've got your tax file open, go to the file menu, scroll down to autofill my return. This window will pop open, and then ProFile is going to launch a browser where you will be taken to CRA's website, and then you would sign in and double check the social insurance number, and then click next. And ProFile is, well, now it's the web browser that's going to go to the CRA's website and go and find all the information. And then here's what it's found. And you could click what you want to download. Okay, so you say, yes, download all this information into the tax return. So you don't have to fill in all of those slips. ProFile will do it for you. Okay. And so notice that if you've already got a column, like a T4, for example, partially filled out, you could tell ProFile to either add a second column, add as new, or you can say, listen, I already started filling out a T4 for the city of Ottawa. Whatever I've got there, replace it with what I'm downloading. So be careful with those two choices. You don't want to duplicate anything. So you're either adding another column, if there's already a column there on the T4, for example, as Duncan was describing. Notice we've got different columns because somebody could have multiple T4 slips. So if you've already got a T4 slip in column 1, but it's not completely filled out, and then you do an autofill, well, you don't want it to populate the second column and keep the first column there. You just want it to replace whatever's in the first column, okay? And then you could view what's called the data import summary, and you could just double check to see what it is that ProFile has imported. So a massive time saver. There are some considerations. Can we rely on it 100%? Absolutely not. Notice bullet 4 here, not 100% accurate. There have been, and there continue to be certain issues. So you will want to use this as just another resource. You don't want to replace everything else with autofill. You want to use autofill and your own professional judgment and the slips and all the other information you have both concurrently. Okay, but does it save time? Does it ensure completeness? I know personally that oftentimes I'd have a client who gave me all their slips, so they thought only to see that autofill is populated a couple of T5s that they forgot to give me. Then you check with the client and say, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot about those. So it's great for things like that. Great for double checking your client's documents, okay? It's not a substitute, it's just a way to work with them concurrently. Watch out for those duplicate imports. Please be careful. Don't do autofill twice and start populating multiple T4s. And be careful with T3s and T5008s. They've been known to be a little bit inaccurate Okay, so some things you may want to think about. Okay, before we move on to our next section of our webinar, I know that Dustin is supposed to be joining us, and if you're here, Dustin, I'll give you the floor. And it looks like Dustin is here. Dustin, hello, thank you for taking the time. Dustin is here to talk about something brand new and something pretty exciting. So I'll hand over the mic and take over screen share if you want, Dustin.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is Dustin Schisler. I am the product manager for ProFile, and I'm going to do a quick demo on a new feature that's available for ProFile now called Intuit Sign. I'm just going to jump in and share the screen. Okay, so hopefully everyone can see my screen here, and you should see ProFile with a return open. So just a little bit of context. We speak to our customers all the time, and we like to build and develop features based on what customers' needs are. Now, COVID has changed a lot of things, and the CRA put forth temporary legislation to allow electronic signatures on critical authorization forms, like the T183, for example. They are going forward with legislation to make this a more permanent stay. And this is a top request that we get from customers to have a electronic signature solution integrated in ProFile. Now, many of you may or may not know, we do have integrations with DocuSign as well as Adobe Sign. But what we're trying to do here is provide a low-cost Intuit Sign solution that works with the product that you need it to work with for the forms you need it to work for. So with our Intuit Sign solution, it has just come out last month. It is currently $120, and this would be for the whole tax year and for your whole firm with unlimited envelopes. So you won't incur additional costs if you're sending a lot of requests, a lot of envelopes, or having other folks in the firm make or send these requests. Now, before I jump into what this looks like, I just want to mention that security and compliance are the top priorities for us, along with some time-saving benefits for you that I'll show you through the demo here. But just wanted to call that out, that we are doing things in an effort to make sure that your data is secure, your client's data is secure, and that we're helping you stay compliant with CRA regulations. All right, so let's hop into it. So you can see I have my ProFile application open here. So first things first, I need to connect to Intuit Sign. Now, for a little bit of history, I did already purchase my Intuit Sign license, and I have put it in my ProFile application. So you would actually be able to see that over here, just to prove that I did it. And so what I'm going to do now is I want to connect to Intuit Sign because it is an online service, right? So I'm going to go to File, and then I'm going to go down to e-signature and click Connect. Now this is going to ask me to sign in to my One Intuit account. Okay, so I'm just going to get a verification code here. Okay, so I'm just signing in. Okay, and now I'm just going to pick the company that I purchased my Intuit Sign license with. Hopefully everyone else doesn't have this huge list of companies to go through. I do a lot of testing here, so that's why, so don't mind me. All right, so Tattoos by Dustin, I'm going to connect. All right, everything is now connected. All right, so I'm just going to hit finish, and now you'll see that the integration window pops up. Like I mentioned, DocuSign and Adobe Sign are still available for use. I'm going to go down to Intuit Sign. Now that I've signed in, I'm going to click Connect. All right, now we are connected. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to request a document signature. As you can see here, I do have a return open that I've been working on. So I'm going to click on File and go down to e-signature. You'll notice that there's different options here now that I'm connected to a provider. So I'm going to go ahead and click Connect e-signature. Okay, and this is going to bring me to the document chooser. So here I can choose which document I want to get signed. For the intent and purposes of this demo, I'm going to choose the T183 form, and I'm going to go ahead and click Next. Okay, so now you can see in the little pop-up here, I'm going through the request workflow. So I can see the document that I chose here. If I had multiple documents here, I can rearrange the order or delete some. I can even view just to take a look and see exactly what it looks like before I send. I'm going to go ahead and hit Next here. Now you can see it. The recipient's information is automatically here. What this does is it's pulling that information in from the personal information on my tax return. That way it saves me a step. I don't have to retype all of this information in. One thing I do want to mention though, with this request screen, it's important to make sure that this information matches your client's mobile carrier provider. And the reason I say that is because we use an authentication method where we send their cell phone a SMS code as a one-time password, which you'll see in the client experience. But this information needs to match against their cell phone record, or they might not be able to authenticate. And this is kind of what I was alluding to with security being a top priority. We want to make sure that only the person that's supposed to see these documents are seeing the documents and can sign them. So here's an opportunity where you could update this information. Let's say they had their maiden name on their cell phone record, for example. You can go ahead and update that here. It's not going to auto update it on the return. So this could be used independently. Just wanted to call out that we are auto populating this information to try and save a step in the long run. Down here, you'll see there's an email message. This is a default template that we have. You do not need to put in the client's name here. Having it in brackets like that will automatically pull in the client's name from the return as well. And then what you can do, you can update this if you like. You can add your own text to personalize it for the client that you're sending it to. Okay, so I have confirmed my client's details. I'm going to go ahead and hit Next. And here's where I get to the reminders section. So this is an awesome time saver for everyone that uses this solution. First off, you can set an expiry date. So again, security, if it's sent to an email that is no longer accessed by the client, you can have an expiry date set. So worst case, the link will expire within a certain period of time. We do have these set by default, but as I mentioned previously, you can manipulate these and change them to customize them how you see fit. So you can set up a request expiration date. In this example, it's 14 days. Then I can also set up a reminder to remind the signer to sign this document in 3 days after it's been sent. You can then accelerate the reminders to send a reminder every X number of days. In this example, it's 2 after that first reminder. And then as well as a final warning to let the client know that the request link is going to expire in however many days you see fit. So once I have my reminders and expiration set how I want to set them, I'm going to go ahead and hit Next here. This is going to give me another chance to review what I'm sending to my client, so I can double check I have the right documents, make sure that I have the right recipient info here, and that my reminders are set the way I want to set them. Once you have everything here, you can go ahead and send the request. I'm going to go ahead and click Send. Okay, and that request has now been sent. And that is literally it. That's as easy as it is to make and send a Intuit Sign e-signature request. Okay, and now I'm going to show you what this looks like on the client side. So we're going to pretend that I'm the client. I just sent this request to myself, and I'm going to go sign my tax document. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the email here and click the Review and Sign button. Okay, and as soon as I click that link, I get a one-time password code sent to my cell phone. And again, this is a time saver for your clients. There's no need for them to create an account, And if it's year over year signing, they don't need to remember what they set as their password, reset their password, get signed in. It just makes it a lot easier. They get this one-time password that they can put in as their code, and then they can access their documents. Oops, I think I put in an old one here. Let me just try this new one I just got. Okay, great. So I'm in here. You can see that this is the T183 form. The social insurance number has been masked just in case for security purposes. But now as the client, I can take a look at the T183 form, make sure that everything looks accurate here as I would expect it. And once I've reviewed the document, I can go ahead and sign it. And signing is really as easy as a few clicks. So I'm going to check this box here to indicate that I understand this is a legally binding representation of my signature. And you'll see that the e-sign document button lights up. So now I can click on it. And go ahead and click on that. And it's going to ask me to type in my name for the signature. I'm going to put Shavana's name in here and click apply. And now you can see that the document is signed. And if I click this send button, it's going to send it back to my tax pro so they have a copy of it. And that's it. That's literally as easy as it is to sign a document for your clients. They get a one-time passcode to their phone when they click the link. They enter the passcode, review the document, and sign it. Now what I'd like to show you is what this looks like as the tax professional sending the requests. One really nice feature that we have here is an Intuit Sign dashboard. And this is going to allow you to track and monitor any requests that are outstanding, any that you've sent, and you can kind of keep up to date on which requests need your attention the most. I'm going to go ahead and open up the dashboard here. You'll see we have a cool dashboard. It's got all my clients, what their email address was, the documents that were sent, when it was sent as well. You can see on this one, it says e-signature completed. There's a different status for each client, so you can know exactly where they are in the process. But you can also sort the columns to get the ones you need attention for at the top. And now, if you take a look under the actions, there is a couple different actions here. So for this one in particular, if I want to see the history, I can do exactly that. It's going to show me the subject of the email, an envelope ID, when it was sent, when it was created. It's going to show me that the document or email was viewed and delivered, as well as when the signature was completed. Not only that, but you do have the option to download a copy of the signed document for your own record keeping. I will say that this is a cloud-based and internet-based service, and we do store the documents online for you for 7 years to help you stay compliant with the CRA, and you can come in and download them at any time. Let's take a quick look at what that looks like. So I'm going to click download on this one here. We're going to save this to my folder. I'm going to replace that. Okay, and then if we take a look in here, you'll see I have a zip file. I'm just going to open that up. Okay, and here's our T183 form. You'll see this. You can see that it's signed as well. We apply an automatic date and timestamp, which is a compliance necessity for the CRA on these forms. So that gets stamped with a date and time is when the client sends it back to you and signs the document. There is also another component here, and I just want to show you that. So with each signature also comes a certificate of authentication, which is basically giving you proof that the person who signed the document is the person who was intended. So if you take a look at the certificate of authentication, it'll have the signature. It's going to have the IP address of the location where the document was signed, as well as some sent, viewed, and signed information, like I mentioned, through that audit log and when it was verified. So really cool to have that certificate of authentication. Like I said, we do keep these on record for 7 years to stay compliant with the CRA. But on top of that, you can also download a copy for your own record keeping. And so that would conclude the demo of Intuit Sign. I hope everyone enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's great, Dustin. That looks, I mean, it's really not complicated at all, is it? It seems pretty straightforward. Wonderful.
Hi, Dustin. It's Mr. Butt in here. I just want to point out, some people ask, does the information actually get entered, like the date and time, in the T183? And if you go to the T183, you can see that it has to be manually entered.
Yeah, so it'll be automatically added to the PDF of the signed document. It would need, at current state, it would need to be manually added within the file itself. But something we're taking a look at.
Right, so that's the thing. Basically, I guess you have to download it and then make sure you enter it on the actual T183.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dustin. That's a frequent question.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for asking.
All right. Well, thanks very much again, Dustin, for taking the time. And we're getting, did you want to field a quick question or two if you have
Sure. Yeah,
a couple of moments?
Yeah.
There's an anonymous question we had, or someone's saying, well, we have a lot of elderly clients and they don't have cell phones. Is there a way to do email verification or?
At the current time, this only works through cell phone authentication, as email is not secure enough for our liking. But we do recognize that this is a problem that some tax professionals have with their clients, and so we're looking into potential solutions there.
Okay,
but currently, it would need to work with a mobile provider, and we do have coverage. 87% coverage across Canada, including Bell, Rogers, TELUS, as well as some of their subsidiary companies.
Great, wonderful, thanks. There's another question here that someone is saying that, I'm not sure I even understand the question, but I'll read it out to you very quickly. It says, I understand that you are improving to include other documents that don't need signing. Not sure exactly what that means. I don't know if that means anything to you at all.
Well, I could make an assumption. So, we currently do have a pretty big list of documents that can be signed in the T1, T2, and T3 coming soon module. We are also exploring introducing additional capabilities for signatures, such as like a tax return, like the full return to sign off on, as well as some client letters. So we are looking to make some improvements and see what else we can capture and bring in here. We're really just getting started, but I think we've delivered a pretty awesome solution so far. And we are constantly making improvements. So feel free to funnel any sort of feedback like this our way. Like I mentioned, we do take customer sentiment very serious, and that's kind of what drives our innovation and our product roadmap. So please keep the feedback coming.
Perfect. All right. Well, again, thank you for taking the time. And I think we're going to call a break. And again, thanks again, Dustin, and maybe talk to you next time. But thanks for that demo. It was wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Okay, let's take a break. How about it's 2:20, well, 2:20 here in the Eastern time zone. Let's take a 10-minute break. We're running a little bit behind schedule, but no big deal. We have plenty of time. So let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll be back at the bottom of the hour. So 2:30 Eastern time. All right, see you soon. All right, I think we are getting ready to enter our last part of the webinar. Let me start by sharing the screen first of all. Give me a second here. Just pick the right. I always want to make sure I pick the right screen because I've done that before, where I'm talking my way through a webinar and nobody could see what I was. Nobody could see anything that I was referring to until 5 minutes later, when I saw the message saying, "Hey, you're not sharing the right screen." Okay, anyway, talking to myself, I think, more than anything else here. All right, let's go back to our presentation. And okay, break's over. Let's do a very quick, did you know, some very quick little tips and tricks and little nuggets of information. First of all, it's important to be on the right version, right? The current version. So there was an update. I think I got my update notice just this morning. So I don't know if it was as of today or yesterday, but There is an update. The current version is 2023.1.0, as you can see on the screen. And a little tip for you, you might want to enable automatic updates, or at least automatic check for updates. If there's an update, ProFile will let you know. It's not going to update for you. It's just going to tell you, hey, there's an update. Please go and update ProFile. And it's right here in the environment options window. Again, click the options menu, go to environment, system tab, and then check this box right here, enable automatic check for updates. Okay. I'm going to throw this out very quickly. We talked about it last year, and some people, we had mixed reviews, but apparently I've never used it myself. A friend of mine was a CPA, told me that he used it, he thought it was great. But CRA apparently has some kind of a hotline that they can help tax practitioners answer any questions. And apparently senior staff, I don't know anything over and above it. If you're interested, if you're curious, just try Googling CRA dedicated telephone service. It's dedicated for tax practitioners. A couple of other things you might want to take a look at. Again, how to personalize ProFile. If you like fixed decimal entry, personally, I can't stand it. What are we talking about? If you type in, for example, let me get rid of that X. Oops, try that again. Get rid of the X. There we go. So if I type in 24.99 on my keyboard, it's 2,499. Some people like it such that 24.99 means $24.99. If you like that idea, that ProFile will automatically place a decimal point, then go to, again, environment options. All right, go to the edit tab, and you'll see there's a choice here, or an option that you can check the box and say, yes, I want to use fixed decimal entry. Okay, I can't get my head around it. It doesn't work for me, because if you want $2,499, then you've got to do 2499 and press the dot, press the period, right? The decimal. Doesn't work for me. But if you like that, go for it. Okay, you can turn that on. There's a timer. If you charge by the hour, you can actually turn the timer on. You could have ProFile time the amount of hours and minutes you're working on a return. If you like capitalization, so if you want ProFile to automatically, for example, have everything uppercase, I've seen a lot of tax returns where everything is uppercase. Again, it doesn't work for me. I don't like everything uppercase. I like just normal capitalization where I'll decide what's going to be capital. Or you could use smart capitalization, that ProFile will always capitalize the first letter in any word. So you have other personalization options here, okay? And then there's this really cool one, ditto key. So the ditto key is a very quick copy and paste. So let me show you what I mean. Let me just open up a new, let me open up medical. So if I put in here, description of expenses, eyeglasses, all right? So I type in eyeglasses, and then I press. The ditto key is the key to, on most keyboards anyway, the key to the left of the one. You know, the numeric row of keys on your keyboard near the top. There's this little key to the left of the one that's, I think it's called the tilde, and there's a backslash. So if I press that, okay, no, I did that wrong. Let me press tab instead. Let me try that again. So I press the ditto key, and then I go to the next field and I press ditto again. And so what happens is now every time I press that backslash or tilde key, it automatically pastes. So it's like a quick way of doing copy and paste, okay? So in order to do that, again, go into the environment options, go to the edit menu, enable the selection that says allow ditto key. And then to copy, just highlight something, press that backslash key, and then after that, just go to any field and press the ditto key again, and boom, you're done. Okay, so that's a little tip for you there. This I've been waiting for a long time. You might remember, those of you that are longtime profile users, you could zoom, you had two levels of zoom, either too small or too big. Personally, that was my opinion. It was either a little bit too small for the resolution on my computer, or it was too big. Now you've got this variable zoom. I love this feature. I think it's fantastic. So what you could do is you could just click right over here. You can see my mouse pointer moving around, and I could select the level of zoom that I want. I could go 90%, I could go 50%, okay? And so I find for this particular monitor, 75% is just right. So variable zoom, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful feature. I'm so happy to see that in ProFile. And again, just a little tip for you. If you don't like using the mouse, you prefer using hotkeys, the function keys, here's just a brief list of all, not all, but a few of my favorite function keys. F2 override, F5 switch between spouses return, and so on and so forth. So I just thought I'd show you that. And lastly, don't forget that there are other events. It's not just these once a year webinars or at this time of year for 3 months. We call this the ProFile Tour. There are other events that go on throughout the year. You could go to ProFile's website and check the calendar to see what else is available in terms of training sessions. Few other things before we wrap up. First of all, this is something that's been discussed a lot in the prior webinars, and it's something that people seem to want to know about. What do you do if you have a client that's disposed of their principal resident? So let's very quickly walk you through how to do that in ProFile. So let's go to a tax return. Let's go back to the info page, okay? And it says right here, did you dispose of a property in 2023? Okay. And so, I can't use this return. I think I've already done that in this return. Sorry. Let me just start a brand new return very quickly. Okay. Let's go to 2022. And okay, so let's try that again. So I'm just going to answer the question, did I dispose of a property? I'm going to say yes. Let's put in a social insurance number just for the heck of it. All right, and put in a quick name. All right, there we go. All right, so there we go. And now I just say yes to this question about disposition. And then from there, all I have to do is go to the S3, Schedule 3. So once again, F4 to open up Form Explorer, type in S3, and scroll down to the bottom. And then you'll see there's a principal residence form to fill out. So let's click that. And let's say, yes, I did sell a property and it was my principal residence for all the years that I've owned it. Okay. Put in a street address and all that. So very quickly, let's just put some information here. Main Street, Ontario, and put in the city. And very quickly put in a postal code. All right, year of acquisition, let's pretend it was 2010. Okay, proceeds of disposition, let's pretend we got $7.99. Okay, and then we have a choice. We either open up the T2091 form or 1255 for deceased taxpayers. So assuming our client is still alive, we're going to use T2091. And now all we have to do is say, I designate this to be my principal residence for how many years after the acquisition date. So we said 2010, I think, if I'm not mistaken, sold in 2022. So let's put in 11 years, okay? And then go down to where I think you can stop there actually, but brain fade. Whenever it's funny, I do these and it's like no brainer, and then I have to show somebody how to do it, and all of a sudden I'm at a brain fade part of the discussion. But I think you could stop there. However, I'll just very quickly show you if, on the other hand, it hasn't been the principal residence for all the years owned. Then what you could do is you could go here and select the second box and say, it's been my principal residence for part of the time. So now we can go back to that 2091, okay? And we could say it's been principal residence, let's pretend, for 9 years, okay? And now we scroll down, okay? And we go to right over here, line 5. How many years did you own it? Let's pretend we owned it for 11 years. And then we put in proceeds, $799. And then we put in whatever the ACV was. Let's pretend it was 500. Okay. And now ProFile is going to calculate the capital gain for that principal residence. Okay. And so notice that you have 3 choices, right? You've got principal residence for all years, principal residence for some of the years, or maybe you had multiple properties. Okay. So important to make the right selection. Okay, let's move on. Very quickly, we'll show you how to work with coupled returns. So if you have a couple that comes into your office and you want to work on both tax returns, so what you do is you start one. So we've already started this one, okay? So we're at the info page and we have a tax return, and it's Astor Fields is the name of our client, and we just select the box. Let's pretend living common law, okay? Let's put it in Ontario as a province of residence. We would have to fill in, if this were a real tax return, we'd fill in all this stuff, Canadian resident and all that stuff. But the important thing is we select the marital status. In this case, we're saying living common law. And then we scroll down all the way to the spousal information, okay? And now we could put in the spouse's or the partner's information, all right? And so very quickly, we'll put in a social insurance number, and this should work. There you go. And let's put in the first and last name, and then I'll show you what you could do after that. You just put in the spouse's name. Let's pretend Francis. Come on, there we go. All right, and birth date and all that we would have to put in. Okay, see the yellow fields, right? All you have to do is, remember, follow the yellow brick road. In our case, all we have to do is follow the yellow fields. And now what you could do is you prepare a tax return for the spouse. And so hotkey F5. When you press F5, you're saying, I want to work on the spouse's return or the partner's return. So I'm going to press the F5 key. ProFile checks and says, well, wait a minute, there is no return yet for this particular person with this particular social insurance number. So now we just select, create a new return, click OK, and ProFile creates a return for the spouse. Notice the color is different, okay? And now we could toggle back and forth amongst the two or between the two returns. So we put in a T4 for spouse or partner number 1, press F5, and it's gonna toggle to the T4 of the partner's return. Now I put it in the T4, okay? And so F5 will toggle back and forth. And what if we have, for example, a T5 that's shared? They each contributed to the investment, and we want to split that income. So RBC Securities or something, and they split it, let's pretend, 40% for partner number 1 and 60% for the other partner. So just put in the split for the tax return you're working on. Okay, notice ProFile automatically filled in the 60% for the other partner, and then you put in the full amount. So we earned $4,000 of interest income, and ProFile will then take that $4,000 and split it 40-60 on the tax return. Okay, so that's really all you need to do there. And then the rest of it is essentially It's filling in.
Michael, can you
Yes.
toggle over to the T5 on the spouse's return?
Oh,
Because
sure.
we get this question where people toggle
Okay.
over and they go, well, how come
Yeah.
it didn't enter there?
Right. Right.
And so it doesn't, right? So
Right. Yeah.
what a lot of people say, well, I'll enter it here and put 4060 on this one.
Right.
But if you
Gotcha.
actually go to like the comparative, you can see that it's
Oh,
splitting.
good idea. Yeah, right. Okay. If we do the summary, you mean?
Yeah, the summary. Yeah.
Oh, hang on. Oh, I think that's an N, not an M. Hang on a second. There we go. So there it is. Thank you for that. There you go.
Yeah. So that's a common question people have. Well, they call and say, well, I entered it on one. How come it didn't transfer over to the other? So I thought I'd just pop in with
Yeah.
that.
No, that's a great point because it threw me at first too. I would look at the T5 on the spouse's return. I'm like, it's not there. And you're right. It doesn't profile will not populate that one. However, this is great. I was going to go to each independent T1 and so and show you, but yeah, just go to the summary and you'll see both spouses, both partners, and there's the split right there. So,
Yeah, I love the summary.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, it is. Thank you for that. Okay, if I sound like I'm rushing, it's probably because I am. This is the first webinar we do of this series, and so the timing is always an estimate. We're never sure how long things are going to take. I just want to make sure I cover everything before we sign off. And it looks like I may have rushed for no reason because all of a sudden I rushed a bit too much. And it looks as though, oh, no, I've got a couple of other little things to show you. What about RSPs? What about donations? We did the split T5 income. So RSP, let's just very quickly show you that. So again, just hit F4. Oops, no, I hit F5 by mistake. Hit F4, type in RSP. Okay, there's the RSP form that opens up. So let's pretend that we've got an RSP a contribution of $5,000, right? You would think that that's all there is to it. Put in the 5,000, choose the right contribution period for 60 days or whatever it may be, right? And the slip description, and there you go. But no, you've got to scroll down a little bit, okay? You want to make sure that ProFile knows what the deduction limit is. Now, that is either going to come from the NOA. So if this is the first time client, this is the first time they come to you, and assuming you're not using autofill my return. This is where autofill is going to come in handy because then that stuff gets done automatically. So here, in that case, what we're going to do, assuming we're not using autofill my return, we're going to have to ask the client for their prior year's notice assessment, or we go get it ourselves if we have represented client. We go find their deduction limit, right? And we put it in. So let's pretend they have a $20,000 deduction limit. And now ProFile will apply that $5,000 on the T1, okay? Until I put in that deduction limit, or until it gets carried forward from the prior year's T1. If I'm carrying forward a tax return, that 5,000 will not apply, okay? ProFile will not apply it because it doesn't know that it can. So make sure if you're working with RSPs that you scroll down and enter or double check the deduction limit, okay? And then donations, let's just very quickly show you how you could record some donations. Again, using the F4 key. Let me just do this again. Type in the word or type in the letters DON. And there you go. We're at the donations schedule or form. And then you could just start typing in the name of the organization. This is a popular time of year for November. So let's pretend there's a $250 November donation and a local food bank. Let's pretend there's a $350 donation. So that's kind of pretty much what you need to do. Notice that when you're working on a coupled return, if the individuals donated through their employer and it shows up on the T4 slip, then you could say, right over here where it says claim, you could say, I want to claim just my own slips, or I'm going to claim for this particular taxpayer both couples on the one return. Okay, so you can select the choices that you see here. Okay, and so that's how you work with a coupled return. The important thing is, just recap, when you're at the info page, make sure to select whether they're married or living common law. And from there, you scroll down and you enter the spouse's information, okay? And then you can press the F5 key. Duncan, you probably don't remember this from last year, but I remember it well. What happens is ProFile creates one tax file for both couples, both individuals. There are not two individual tax files, okay? There's not a tax file for partner one and another tax file for partner two. ProFile creates one tax file and it's for both spouses, okay? So that's how ProFile works with coupled returns. So if you're looking to open up the tax file for another person, you know, the couple, the second person, it's still part of the initial tax file that you created. Okay, so there's going to be Astor Fields tax file, and I think we'll actually name it Astor Fields and whatever the other person's name was here, Francis Savoy. Okay, and let me go back to my presentation. And I think that in terms of the instructional part, yeah, we're done with the instructional part. So we're going to take a few minutes now to talk about the assignment. There is the handout. There's an exercise booklet that you could try out preparing a 2022 T1. Remember to choose the right year, 2022. Please choose. I know you may be in a different province, but for this to work, you have to indicate that your client is in Ontario because of the tax rates and all that. And then you could enter the information. It's all in the exercise booklet. It's exercise number 1. You could try it yourself if you're new to ProFile, and the solution is there. So you could read up on the solution. Now, this could take you a little while if you're brand new. So you could try it offline after our webinar is over. And then even if you come back next week, if you have any questions about it, maybe we could field those questions next week. Okay. I am going to open up the Q&A panel in a second just to see if there are any questions that maybe we could tackle together. But Duncan, I have a question for you. I started asking you this question just before the webinar started and we ran out of time. When there's a Windows update, is there a time limit? Is there something new where, because it's happened to me, I've updated Windows and then I tried to start ProFile and it won't launch. I get the little box with the ProFile logo and there's that progress bar and then nothing happens. And someone told me Windows needs a couple of hours or something before it recognizes ProFile as legitimate software. Do you know anything about this at all? I'm curious.
I think I can answer you, Michael.
Oh, thanks, Mario.
So what we have seen is that on some computers, there is a Windows update, and this particular Windows update will prevent ProFile from working. Mm-hmm. And in most cases, when this happens, they need to wait a few hours, and then after waiting a few hours, then ProFile will start correctly.
Wow. Okay.
And the thing is that we don't know the exact reason for this. Is it something happening in the background with Windows system? We don't know yet.
Oh, okay. 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 So you have seen this. It's not just me. This is
No, you're
something.
not the only one. We have few
Okay.
customers with this issue.
Okay, so is this I'm just curious, is this something that happens to a lot of people, a minority of people? Any idea?
I don't think it's the majority of people, but there is many people having this issue. Yeah.
Really? Okay, good. All right, that's good to know because it's happened to me twice actually. And as a matter of fact, just before getting on to today's webinar, I got another notice Windows wanted to update my computer. Just half an hour before our webinar was to start. So I made sure that I didn't do an update just in case. So there you go. All right, that's great. I don't know if anybody else on this call has seen this happen to them at all, but yeah, a curious situation then with Windows and the way it might prevent Profile from launching on certain machines. All right, we are effectively done for the instructional part of our webinar. Let me go and open up the Q&A panel and see if there's anything I can answer. And let me just, boy, oh boy, you folks have really kept the team busy. There's a whole slew of questions that I see. Most of them have been answered. And let me just see if there's anything that I could address, or maybe we can ask Duncan or Mario or anyone else who's on the call. I know that we've got Miguel here and we've got Luke as well, I believe, and Shavana. If there's anything you want to add, don't hesitate. But let me just read through some of these questions.
Michael, there is something I wanted to add.
Yep.
It's about the colors that you mentioned. So like the blue colors, the blue fields are value computed by Profile itself. And when there is an arrow besides the blue field, then it's coming from another form. Or another
like something like this here, you mean?
Yeah, you see that the arrow on the right side, it means it's coming from another form. If you double click on it, it jumps to the form.
Right.
But if there is no arrow, you cannot click.
Okay, got you. Yes. So for here, for example, this row 19, line 9, there's no arrow here, so there's no jump. It's a total anyway, but nonetheless.
Yeah, it's a total. That's fine.
Yeah, but okay, thank you. Yes, I didn't make that plain. I didn't make that clear. The only time you could jump is when you see that arrow, and you could double click and Profile will jump to that area of the tax return. And so, or you could also, let me go back to the T1. You could also right click and you can see here, look, it says T5 and it's a check mark next to it. So that's what's really cool about it, is you could see the source of these numbers. So yes, thank you for that, Mario. That's a good tip. So if there's no arrow, don't try double clicking. Nothing's going to happen. It's not going to jump anywhere. All right, great. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. Let me see. Oh, there's a few other questions coming in. So I'm just going to read this one. I had to file a previous year for a client who already filed current year. Oh, is there a way to carry back the information? And I wish there were. I don't believe there is. Guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but you can carry forward in Profile, but you cannot carry back. You can't do a 2022 return and then take that information and bring it back to 2021. I'm pretty sure that's correct, but do correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone?
You are correct, Michael.
Thank you.
We recommend if you have to do like 3 years, start with the earliest year and then carry forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, there's no carry back, just carry forward.
Thank you for confirming. And I'm seeing a question about ProTax. Is there any utility for document management in ProTax? Can we save some work? We're actually going to do an introduction to ProTax in our T2 webinar. We take about 10 or 15 minutes and we chat about ProTax. So anybody who's not familiar with it, ProTax is another professional tax package, tax software bought from Intuit that's cloud-based. Instead of being a ProFile, which is you install on your Windows computer, ProTax is kind of like QuickBooks Online. It's an online application, and it works with QuickBooks Online. There's all kinds of tools and there's all kinds of stuff, and they're similar. ProFile and ProTax are similar in some ways and different in other ways. But we will be talking about ProTax, at least introducing it and just showing you, how it works in our webinars. So you may want to come back for that. Not next week, but the week after in our T2 webinar, we're going to be looking at ProTax. Let me see. Can you please summarize the relation between T1, T183? I'm not quite sure I understand your question. The relation between T1, T183, T4, T5, T2091. Well, the T1 is, I'm going to try to answer this. The T1 is the income tax return itself. So this is the T1. And all of its related schedules would be part of the T1. So notice it says right here, T1 2022. The other forms that you're referring to, the T4 to T5, T183, those are all various schedules and slips that tie in. So the T4 to T5 would be, so the T4 is here. The T4 is where we indicate employment income. So that's a T4 form, and whatever we put on here is going to go over to the T1 jacket. Same thing with the T5. The T183 is the form that a taxpayer will sign once you're done the tax return. You want their signatures. Dustin demonstrated how to get an electronic signature, and the T2091 is what we were using to do our principal residence demonstration. So they're all various forms. So again, best way maybe to show this, if you look at the Form Explorer, you're going to see all of these various forms and schedules. There's all of the S1s, S2, S3, S, all the different S's, and all of the different slips and what have you that make up the T1. I'm not sure if I've answered the question properly, but hopefully that kind of sheds some light on it. Okay, let me see what else I got here. There's another question that says, I find when I'm doing a number of years taxes for a client, I need authorization. I can't e-file a previous return, only the current year. Well, I think Duncan is answering the question. And it kind of ties into, if I'm not mistaken, the fact that you should start with the oldest return first. And you get an authorization for that one. You should be good to go going forward.
Yeah, let me answer that, Michael.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, what happens is it's a CRA requirement. You have to do the authorization from the most recent year. So at this point, it's 22. So it's not a profile limitation that you can't authorize from an earlier year. That's a CRA requirement.
Right.
It has to be the current year.
Right. Okay.
That's true. And it is a point that, well, I want to start with 2020. I don't want to start with the most current year.
right.
The only thing I can offer is that you don't actually have to have a saved return from the current year. What you need is the printed, signed T183. So CRA isn't, and you can use your professional judgment, but CRA is not going to say, well, let's see the profile tax file for 2023. All they're going to ask for is the signed T183. So in
Right.
other words, you can go ahead and do the authorization and print the T183, get it signed and send it in, and then either not save the return or overwrite it when you carry forward. That's an
Gotcha.
option. If you think professionally that is helpful, you can go ahead and do it that way.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you. Great tip. Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but we are getting a question that someone who asked about ProTax actually meant ProFile, not ProTax. Is there any utility for document management in ProFile? You mean like, oh, do you mean things like some kind of additional forms, signatures, supporting documentation? If that's what you mean, come back next week. We're going to show you something called HyperDocs, and it's kind of a document management system to an extent, but maybe you'll want to come back for that. We'll show you how that works.
I think, Michael, there is the link feature also.
Oh,
so in ProFile,
okay.
we can use link, and then they can send an email to the client and
Right.
get the
Yes.
document by mail.
Right. That there's yes. Thank you for that. I keep forgetting. I don't know why. I just keep forgetting about link. I used to use it years ago, and it fell off my own radar. But there you go. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me it still exists. But again, I don't do tax professionally anymore, so I kind of forget about some of these things. Can ProFile generate income reports? Again, I'm not sure what you mean by income reports. If you mean things like self-employment income, yes, it will handle self-employment income. You can get a kind of a profit and loss or an income statement where you can enter the revenue and expenses. Okay. And let me just see. Okay, well, that's all I'm seeing right now for unanswered questions. There's a couple of other questions, but the team is answering some of those, so I won't bother reporting on any of those. And that's all I'm seeing for now. Okay, so looks like we're pretty much done for today. Let me just double check. Just having said that, another question just popped in. And again, I'm not quite sure I understand this question. Generate an invoice for the client, but cannot print off a report on. Oh, I see. Are you talking about the invoicing feature? I'm sorry. Okay, Maida, I think I know what you mean now. You're using ProFile to invoice your client. So yes, you can create invoices in ProFile, but you're saying, how come I don't get a report on all of the invoicing? I'm at a blank. I don't know. I've never personally used the invoicing feature in ProFile. Does anyone, maybe someone, some of the Intuit folks, some of the ProFile people could confirm whether or not one does indeed exist, a report that shows you the sum of all the invoicing you've done?
No, I don't think you can have a report of this. However,
Okay.
you could use the Explorer to generate a spreadsheet in Excel of some feeds.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Thank you for that.
With the Client Explorer or the classic database, I think
Right.
we can create a
Yeah,
report.
yeah. And we are going to talk about Client Explorer, I think next week, and just briefly touch on how you can export information from ProFile, create an Excel spreadsheet, for example. So yes, thank you for that, Mario. Let me just see. So signature solution based on calendar year. Okay, I'm sorry, Jude. I'm not. Again, I don't know if it's me. My brain is out of sync or something. I'm not understanding. My question was with the signature solution. Maybe that was something that somebody else answered already, and you're just clarifying. So we'll just leave that one alone for right now. Someone's asking about the video recording. I believe you're going to get a link. You're going to get emailed the link, if I'm not mistaken, for the video. I don't think it's a video. I think it's going to be, well, it's going to be a recording. There will be, I believe, a recording available. I presume you're going to get a link. Maybe Shavana, you could confirm or clarify on that one. And okay. And then there's a question here, Mario. There's one for you. I think you've already answered someone's question, and they're asking for a bit of clarification, it looks like. So I'll leave that one alone. Oh, I see. Somebody's asking about Intuit Sign, and they're wondering if they subscribe to it now. Is it for a calendar year, or is it based on their profile subscription? I think is the question. I'm sorry, I don't have the answer to that. I'm not sure if that subscription is calendar year or a 12-month period. I would assume it's for 12 months. But again, I'm sorry. It's so new that I don't really know anything about it. That's why we got Dustin to come in and demo it. I need to learn about it myself, to be honest with you. But you could easily call Jude. You could easily call the sales team at ProFile, and they could answer that question pretty quickly for you. Okay. All right. I think we are pretty well done with our question and answer. I'm going to let the rest of the team answer the few questions that they're already typing answers I could see.
Yeah, I don't know, Michael. I think some of these questions coming up now, they can find answers in community. It might be good to show community again. And also tell people there's the advanced webinar where some of these questions can be answered also.
That's a good point.
So I think we're starting to run over time answering questions that'll be covered in the next webinar.
You know what? You know what? Actually, am I wrong? Was this webinar supposed to end at 3 or 3:30? For some reason, I had 3:30 in my mind. Am I mistaken, Duncan? Was it supposed to end at 3? I'm not even sure, to be honest with you. Maybe I could take that offline. I'll ask Shavana to just confirm when it is that we're supposed to end. Like, we may be running over time here. My apologies if we are. But you know what? Why don't we let's end it right now. Do come back next week. We're going to be back next week. Everybody will be here again. Some of these questions, as Duncan pointed out, we'll touch on our webinar next week. And sorry if there's some questions we might leave unanswered. But again, this is the first one we're doing, so sometimes we're never sure. We're never sure about how long it's going to take us. But I'm going to have to get that time frame clarified myself. Yeah.
And that was my bad, Michael. It's it does go till 3:30.
Oh, it is still 3:30. Oh, okay, okay.
But still, the point is, community has a lot of
right. Oh, yes.
detailed information, and the advanced webinar will cover a lot of the more complex issues.
Yeah. Let me just go to Intuit website. And so if you go to, oh, maybe to community, where are you? Here we go. So community and support. So there's a whole pile of stuff that you could check on in the community. And I'm probably taking the long way there, but nonetheless, we are there. So we are in the tax community. It's a great resource for asking questions, answering questions, or viewing anything that's already been discussed. Notice there is a search bar, so you could put in a search term there as well. And wonderful way of learning more about whatever it is, the burning issue you've got. You could certainly have a look there to learn more. So that's the Intuit or Profile tax community. And let me just go one last time, just in case there's something that I'm missing here. It looks as though some of these questions are just follow-ups to other questions. Some of these are just comments. So I would say that we are done for today. I'm not sure if there's any last words that you might have, Duncan or Mario or Shivana, before we wrap it up.
Hi, Mike. Thank you so much for facilitating today. And thanks to everyone else for supporting, and to everyone who attended, thank you for joining in. And we will be sending a recording and your CPD credits within 1 week of today's session. So look up for it. It'll be sent to the email that you registered with. And I think that's it for today. See you for our next training session next week.
Thank you, everyone, and goodbye for now.